All right, so welcome back. We have 4 actual class days left. And then on that following Monday, the 18th, you have your portfolio due. So it's all kind of wrapping up. Probably you'll start feeling the stress in your other classes as well. So it's my goal to get as much done in class as possible so you don't have to stress out. I do have updated grade sheets for you with your assignment 105s. Unfortunately, the printer decided to print double-sided, so you get your grade sheet and somebody else's. So I'm not passing them out until I go reprint them. So after lecture, I'll go reprint them, and I apologize about that. So we're trying to get through kind of all the major views in SketchUp. We'll also spend one day touching up your portfolio and getting that put together, in which case I'll bring all the portfolios back so you can see how people bound them and that sort of thing. Today we're going to talk about plans. We did the elevation views last class. We'll do the plan views today. I have to go back and double check the exact order, but we're going to do sections and we're going to do a perspective view as well. Basically, we're trying to cover all 4 views in SketchUp. It's not important that you have all 4, but you're going to get 3 of them for your assignment 106s that are due. So you get all 3 of the 4 views. Basically, pick the best ones. And the hope, obviously, is that you'll do as much of it as possible in class, and then you don't have to worry about doing it in and amongst studying for finals and all of that sort of thing. So I'm going to go through and do this one live so that you guys can see how I would go about making a plan view out of this. I think the important thing, it's again the same model that I've had from before. The important thing to kind of recognize is that I have 2 options when I'm creating this. 1, I can focus on just the building, or 2, I can focus on kind of the site and the site context. If you're bringing the site in, you can do it by going to the File menu and go to Geolocation, right? I already have it, so I can just click on Show Terrain. If you don't already have it, let me zoom out here so we can see it. Right, there it is in the meadow. Right? I can also go to File, Geolocation, Show Terrain. There we go. And so we can see its context there. If you don't have the terrain already pulled in, you can instead go to this little map icon here, and you can find your location. So mine was right here, right? And then you can select the region and then click on Grab. I'm not going to do it because I've already dropped it in, but that gives you site context should you want site context. I think for the plan view, however, it's not mission critical that we explore the terrain. I just wanted to show you that it's possible. If you had your building more on the hillside, it might be more important to have more of the terrain. But for right now, I'm going to focus just on the building itself. So I'm going to go ahead and turn off the terrain. And so let me go ahead and zoom in here on my building itself. There it is. Right? And I'm also going to go to Window and then Layers. And I'm going to turn off the Google Earth snapshot layer so that it goes away, so that I can focus just on my building itself. Okay, so I have the building, and what I really need is I need to cut a plan view through it. And a plan view is essentially a section view. It just means that you're cutting through everything at a certain height above the floor, right? And we're looking down on it. And typically that height is 4 feet because it's above your kitchen cabinets, your base cabinets, and it's below your upper cabinets. That's why we pick 4 feet. It generally cuts through all the windows, and it cuts through all the doors. So we have a pretty good sense of the space at about 4 feet above whatever the finished floor would be. So I need to cut a section plane through this building at 4 feet. And in an ideal world, I'm going to use some way of specifying that it's 4 feet above. And to me, the easiest thing to do is to draw a little rectangle, something like that. That's fine. And I'm going to use the push-pull tool, and I'm going to pull up, I hope. Of course, it's unhappy because it merged with existing geometry. Hold on, I have to turn that back on. It's because I have the terrain. There it is. I can use the push-pull tool to pull this piece up. And I'm going to type in 4 feet and then enter. to make sure that it's 4 feet above the ground. Okay, that's going to give me a nice face to snap to when I cut the section. I'm going to go back and turn off all that. Hold on a second. I'm going to turn back off the Google Earth snapshot so that that goes away. And now I have my surface here. For some reason I lost. Okay, that's fine. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the section tool to create a section. And it's over here. If you don't see the large tool set, which is where the section tool is, go to View Toolbars and then check the box for large tool set, which is this tool set up here. It'll be at the very end. It looks like kind of an arrow. It's the section plane tool. And so what this will allow us to do, and you can kind of see it there as this green rectangle, is it lets us cut a section through our building. And so I could, for example, cut a section through the building that way. But since we're doing a plan today, not a section, I want to be facing those arrows down, right? And so if I move on top of that little box that I created, right, we can snap to a plane that's 4 feet above the ground. And so I'll go ahead and click on that. And when I do that, it cuts through my building at 4 feet above the ground. Really convenient. Okay? So now, if I go into orbit mode and we orbit around here, we can see. Oh, hold on. We can see there's my plan. SketchUp's being really annoying this morning, right? So there's my plan view. Unfortunately, in this view, right, I'm still a little bit in perspective mode, so I still have vanishing points. So what I need to do is I need to go up to camera, and I'm going to switch to parallel projection, which basically will cause us not to have vanishing points. The other thing that's useful a lot of times is to go to your camera menu, go to standard views, and go to top view. And when you do that, it reorients so that we're looking straight down on our object, on our walls, etc. So if we look carefully at the background here, we do have a little bit of a gray background, and that's because the section plane is being shown. It's one of those annoying things that happens in SketchUp. If I go to, maybe not. If we wait and see if SketchUp comes back here. There we go. If I go to View and I turn off section planes, we'll see that everything sharpens up a little bit more. And I'll also turn off section cuts for right now. Oh, excuse me. No, I want to leave section cuts on. So there it is, right? Now, we have a few problems that are ultimately going to be causing some issues. One being that our shadows, right, are clipped halfway up the wall. And so when we take a section in SketchUp, we don't end up having full shadow geometry. It's as if we just opened up half the model. So the sun is coming inside this, but we're seeing it as if the wall stopped at 4 feet, as opposed to being a full wall. It's just one of the unfortunate side effects of the way that this works in SketchUp. OK, so I'm going to go through and create some of my views, just like we've been doing for export. The first thing that I'll do is I'll go to Hidden Line in my Styles menu, right here. I'll click on Hidden Line, and then I'm going to turn off the axes, and I'm going to turn off the guides, right, so that all those go away. I'm also going to go to View and turn off the section planes to make sure that I have a white background. Okay? So I look like this. I'm going to go into View and then turn off my shadows, and now I have just a basic line drawing of my plan. Once I'm here, it's useful to go ahead and save this as a plan view so that I can go back and repeat it again. So I'll go up to Window and then Scenes. And I'm going to add this to my scenes list. And let me go ahead and create scene. And let me show info. Where is it? Show details. And I'm going to call this Plan 01. All right, so I'm in Plan 01, and that just allows me to come back to it should I mess it up. OK, so I have this view. It's time to go ahead and export. So I'm going to go to File, Export, 2D Graphic. And we've done this before. I'm going to go to Options, and I'm going to make sure that my image size is large enough, right? Make sure it's best quality. I'll go ahead and say OK. then I'm going to save it on my flash drive. Oops. And today is 1/28. We create a new folder for spring 2015. And I'm going to append plan and then lines. And I'll go ahead and click export. And so that'll do the first export for me, which is just the line drawing. Okay. Next piece I'm going to go to is to go and show the shadows, right? And so we usually go to edit and we turn off edges and we turn off profiles, right? And then I'm going to go to view shadows and I get my shadows. Now we still have the same problem here where my walls got cut off halfway through. So since this isn't a full shadow, I'm going to go ahead and turn off. So I'll go to view, turn off the section cut, which will give me the full shadow, right? Now it also gives me the full roof, which is a little bit problematic, but we'll see how this layers in just a second, right? So I have the shadows here, and we'll go to File, Export, 2D Graphic, and this will be shadows. And I'll go ahead and click on Export. Perfect. And so then we'll turn back on edges and profiles, right? And this gives me kind of a nice roof view, which might not be a bad view to have. So I'm going to go to View, and then I'll turn off shadows and just have this kind of line view of what my roof looks like. And I'll go ahead and go to File, Export, 2D Graphic. And I'll call that Roof. All right, let's turn back on the section cut there. And I'll go to View, or excuse me, I'll come over here to Select, go to Edit, and Faces, and we'll turn on X-Ray. We don't really see anything with X-Ray here. If I hid the section cut and I was in X-Ray mode, we see a little bit more. But I don't think we need that view. So this is one of those things where you're always kind of weighing which views do you need. The one with the guides, because I didn't model with any guides, isn't going to do much for me. So I'll go ahead and leave that one off. The last thing that I'm going to do is I'll come to my Select, and I'm going to change into Sketchy Edges, and I'm going to pick one of the Sketchy Edge views. Right? So maybe it's this view. And I do want my section cuts viewed. All right, let me go to Pen Gray, wherever that is. All right, good. Let me go to View. We're going to turn off, oops, not that, section planes. And I'm going to go to View, Guides, and those go off. So I get a little bit of a sketchy edge. Maybe useful, may not be useful. We'll see. I'll go to File, Export, 2D Graphic. And we'll call this Pen Gray. And I'll go ahead and click on Export. Okay, so I have those 4 views, and so now it's time to jump over into the world of Photoshop. So I'll open CS6. And I'm going to combine those views together. So this is very much the same thing we've done. You're noticing that this is repetitive, right? It's just a different view, but we're going to combine them together in the same way. So I'll go to File and then Open. And let me go to my 128 folder. And I'll open my basic lines first. There it is. And then I'm going to load in the rest of the pieces. So I'll go to File and then Place. And we'll start with the shadows. I'll go ahead and click Place. And I'll confirm it. I'll go to File and then Place. And we'll drop the roof in. And I'll say OK. File and then Place. And I'll drop in the Pen Gray. And I'll go ahead and say OK. So now each of these are layered on top. Remember, the top 3 layers here need to switch from being normal to being multiply. Right? And now I'm seeing across all of my views. Okay, or I'm seeing through all of my views. So if we go to look at this, right, if I press Control plus, right, there's obviously some shadows that are not correct. Right? So this shadow here inside of my roof is not going to do a whole lot, so I need to make some adjustments. So let me go ahead and turn off everything except the shadows. I'll press Control minus, right? And I need to make a few deletions. So I'll go ahead with the rectangular marquee tool, and I'll make a little drawing here. Again, I want to be on the shadows layer, and then I can just press delete. So this is a smart object because I placed it in. I have to actually rasterize it. So let me rasterize the layer. It's just a right-click, rasterize. You see the little icon goes away. And then I'll be able to delete it. And then let me go through and let me get rid of these pieces right there. Like that. Okay, and basically everything inside is now clear. If I look, however, close to the outside of this building, we see that there are some places that didn't get filled in. Right? So like that edge there, those are little eave shadows. Right? They're little pieces that obviously, because I had a roof view, the roof was blocking it. So if I go through and I correct those, right, it's going to look a lot better. So let me go ahead and make a rectangular marquee, something like that. Okay. Then I can use the clone stamp tool, or I could use the paintbrush tool. It doesn't really matter. Right? I'll use the paintbrush tool, and I'm going to take my color with the eyedropper from here. You see how the color changes. And then I can go to my paintbrush. Oop, we're not painting with birds. Hold on. All right, we'll pick just a standard hard brush, and I'll go ahead and paint that part in. Like that. And so I'm just making a few little corrections. Right, same thing down here. Go ahead and paint that edge in. Paint that little corner in. There you go. So I can work my way around the building and correct any of these little problems. Right? So let's see here. Let's make it a little bit longer. Something like that. And then we'll paint along here. And I'm just touching up that edge. Like that. This was a little porch on the back side, but it would have the same shadow on it, and it's not even drawn in this section, so I'm going to go ahead and fill that in as well. So we'll just make that go away. Now, as we come around here, you can see that there are some issues, say with this shadow, for example, where it's not quite casting the way we'd like it to because the roof was blocking it. This one takes a little bit more work. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a line that starts here and kind of follows along with this shape. Right? It should line up with right there. Go to there. Right, now this one's a little bit harder because I have to get the right parallel here because we're faking it. And I'm a little off, so we'll have to add to the selection. Sometimes that's the easiest strategy, is to go ahead and make the selection and then add to it. I'll hold down Shift. We're going to come over here a little bit. Like that. There it is, and we'll go ahead and fill in again. So I'll use the paintbrush, and we'll fill this part in, right, which is that little piece of shadow. I'm going to go ahead and copy this piece of shadow, Control-C, and then Control-V. It should be right here. Let's see where it is. There it is. So I can use it for this edge as well, right? And I can fill in that last little piece up here. And we'll go ahead and paint that little piece in there. And I'll press Control-0. Now that layer didn't have, it's not a multiply layer right now, so I need to change that to be a multiply layer. There it is. And so now it's sliding through. And so I use that to mimic these two shadows. I've got a little bit of shadow left there, but it's looking pretty good. Okay. The other thing that I've noticed is I've got a few extra lines that are in the middle of this building right here. Those really should go away. So let's go down to the background layer here. And I'm going to draw a little rectangle like that. And I'm actually just going to paint these in white. But my background layer is locked, so I have to right-click to unlock it and say Layer from Background. And then we'll flip into white, and we'll just paint over those so those go away. All right. Since I have these other layers, and I'm going to have those lines showing up right there as well, I'll go ahead and paint on. All right. Paint on that layer as well to make that line go away. All right. So now that's done. And I will go ahead and press Control 0, and we can kind of look at this. It's looking reasonable as a floor plan thus far, but now I need to add some more context. I might also include the roof plan, but it's too strong right now, so let me go ahead and drop the opacity down, something like that. You guys probably can't even see it. There it is, a little bit of it there. Okay, so I have that done. What I need is some more context. I need something to make it tie into a site or give it something. One way that I could do it is I could add, say, wood paneling inside wood flooring or something like that, which we've done previously with siding or whatever. But I'm going to focus today instead on adding site context. So what does this look like from the air if we were looking at it? One of the big challenges with adding imagery behind a plan view is we need the right scale imagery. And so anything that we get from satellites is too far away. There's not enough detail for it to really show nicely. Things that are from an airplane are still a little bit far away, right? And things that are shot too close to the ground are obviously too close to the ground and not big enough. So what I've found the right kind of happy medium to be is images that are shot with kites. And if you've never experienced kite, it's called kite aerial photography, and there's a whole like trend of it that exists. They're very cool images, but it's just about the right scale for dropping into an image like that. So I'm going to go onto my Creative Commons search, and I'm going to say kite aerial photography. Hopefully I spelled it correctly. And let's take a look here. Right, so there's obviously there's a bunch of examples here, some of which are looking just for perspective here, right? Shot with a kite, something like this, right, is above the beach looking down, but it's about the right distance. It's just looking obviously out instead of looking straight down. So if we instead look straight down, we're going to get images that are more like this, right? Which give us a good amount of detail of plants and that sort of thing, but also might give us some water features or whatever. So now it's going to take some time to look through and find an example of a meadow or something that looks reasonable. All right, so you have to bear with me a little bit while we scroll and search here. Right, that one would be good if it was a beach scene. Obviously, we're not in a beach environment. This one might not be bad, so let me open the link in New Tab. And usually when I'm looking through this, that's one of the ways that as I find an image that I like, I right-click and just open in a new tab, and then I keep going as I keep looking. Obviously, we don't need a scene that has a bunch of people in it, though a few people might not be a bad thing. So let me keep looking down here. Right? And really, a large part of doing this is finding the right image such that it really looks good. Right? And so as you're going through this, it may take you 10 minutes or so to find the right image. All right, something like this looks pretty good. Right? This one's great with those trees. I like those. The problem is that we're not getting enough of the image. If I were to put my house in here, it would be out of scale. So it's a little bit too close. But I'll open it in the background, and we'll see if that person has a few more example shots here. So let's look back at the ones I have. This one's not bad. We've got a little bit of road there. I think this is the same image, but in kind of a greenish color. So this one could work. So I can go ahead. Yeah, it's a little blurry, but it's not too bad, right? So I'll go ahead and download that one in its original size. And let's see this one. This one, I like the texture of it, right? It might work. It's probably not quite big enough, though. Sometimes the same person will have a view that's a little bit further away. That one's not bad. So let me go ahead and download that one. See if they have any others. Right? Might be a little too desert-like. I don't know. Right? Let's see here. This one. Yeah, those are all too close. Right? I have a couple others that I've already downloaded on my flash drive. And once I have an image, I'm going to go ahead and go to File and then Place, and we'll bring those images in. Let me look with some icons here. Those are not the correct. Let me look in 127. Right, well, we may end up with this one. Yeah, just so don't like that one. Sorry, I'm being picky, but I think it makes a difference long term. Let me try. There. Okay, we'll use one of these. Yeah, I like this one a little bit better. Yeah, that one's good. Okay, so let me go ahead and show this in its folder. And of course, it just disappeared on me. Gotta love it. Show in folder. That's this one. Let me right-click and say Save, or actually, let me just copy it, and I'll paste it on my flash drive here. No, it helped if I was in the right class. There we go. And I didn't like that one, so I'm not going to keep that one. I'm going to go to File and then Place, and let's try that other one. There we go. All right. So I need to make this a little bit larger, so I'll hold down Shift as I increase the size here. Obviously, because my building has to fit within it, right? Something like that. And also, I'm going to be looking for a spot that's kind of in and around where the existing trees and bushes would be. So maybe, let's go over a little bit more, maybe like that will work. I'll go ahead and say OK. Okay. And so we've got kind of this background. Now, to me, this color version of the background is a little bit strong for right now. So I'm going to go ahead and turn this to black and white. So I'm going to do a layer, new adjustment layer, and it's going to be a channel mixer. And we'll call this black-white. Say OK. And again, this is exactly what we've done before. I'm going to switch that to monochrome to strip out some of that color information. I can use the presets here depending on which looks right. That one gives us a little bit more punch, so we'll go with that for right now. Right? And I want that just to apply directly to the layer below it, not to all my layers. So I'll press Control-Alt-G, and I'll get the application just to this layer. Now I need to actually cut out for my building in this particular scene. So let's go ahead and turn everything off except my original floor plan here. I'm going to select, using the magic wand, the background. Right? Then I'll go to select inverse, like that, and we'll jump back up to my background layer, and I'll click add layer mask. Oops, opposite. Select inverse, add layer mask, and now that cuts out. Right? We can turn that back on to black and white, and you can see that I'm starting to integrate this into the site itself. It's probably still a little bit strong, right? So maybe I'll turn the opacity down a bit so that it provides a little bit of background context, something like that. Okay? We can turn on the rest of these layers to start to see it layered up once the shadows are on, etc. Now, before I did that, I should have paid attention to something, and I'm just noticing right now. When I look down at this image, turn these off for a second. Right? If I look at the tree here, notice the shadow's going this way. Okay? When I did this, the shadow was going the opposite. When I did my shadows, right? They're going the opposite way. So that's a glaring mistake, right? That I didn't catch right away. So let me back up before I've created this mask, and I need to flip this image before I do it. So let's deselect everything. And let me go to Edit, Transform, and I'm going to flip horizontal. Press Control 0. Right? We've got them going this way now, not quite right. Let me go to Edit, Transform, Flip Vertical. Right? So now I've got my shadows going in this direction, which is going to match the direction that they are in my house, which is important. So we may need to reorient the house where it's going to be located. So let's go ahead and actually I'm going to make the canvas size a little bit bigger. So let me go to Image, Canvas Size, just because some of this is being cropped off. And I'll change it so that it's a much bigger square. That way I can see the whole image, like that. And let's turn everything else back on so we can see. And you know what? Let me go ahead and move this down in the layer stack so we can kind of look over our shoulder. And I'm going to move that image to figure out where the right place it is. Right? Maybe something like that will work. All right, that'll work. I get a nice piece of my shadow there. It looks pretty good. So I'll go ahead, now that I have that, we can turn these two off. I can actually turn all of these off. And I'm going to go ahead and use the magic wand to select, everything except the building. Right? I'm going to have to add to the selection this extra space up above and below, like that. And then I'll come back to my image, and I'll click on Add Layer Mask. And now I've cut through that image. And we can turn it back into black and white. And now when I turn on my shadows, right, the shadows match the direction of where those bush shadows are. Right? Unfortunately, the bush shadows are a little bit darker than my shadow, so I really need to punch up that shadow. So let's take the shadow layer here, and let's go ahead and duplicate it, which will darken up those shadows. Right? I can even do it one more time. We've got a duplicate layer. Right? I'm trying to make those match roughly the shadows that are already there. Does that kind of make sense? Right? I might have pushed that a little bit far, in which case I can dial back one of these and it won't be quite as dark. Right? Something like that. Okay? So those are starting to work out pretty well. This was my other little shadow, so I need to duplicate that a few times too to match. There, it's that little shadow. All right. So now I have that pretty well integrated. We can go ahead and crop. So I'll use the crop tool, which of course is hiding from me. There it is. And we'll crop down to that square because we don't need any excess space. Something like that. Something like that. And I'll go ahead and say OK. And we'll press Control 0. There it is. And so now we're looking down on this, and it's looking pretty reasonable as a building site. It's a little bit contrasty. It's a little bit strong, so I might tone the whole thing down a little bit more. So let's go ahead and turn these two back on, and let me take all of these layers there, and we'll adjust that opacity down a little bit. Just trying to lighten up the overall background. Oops. 36, let me do that one too. 50. On that. Right, I'm just trying to tone it down just a little bit so that we're not overpowering the drawing itself. Okay, so I have that installed or pretty well. I'm actually noticing right now that because of my export, I ended up cutting off part of the shadow. So I really need to come back in with my crop tool and change my crop to be right there, because otherwise I should have more of the shadow that's right there. So we're just making a subtle adjustment to that as well. Okay, so now I have this. It's pretty well organized. I'm pretty happy with it. But it would be nice if I had some kind of a path that led to this, let me Control plus, to this front door, right? So that I had some kind of a general context. What I really need is I need a road or something, or a path to work from. So I'll jump back to my search, and let's see. Right, I've got this little path that might work. I've already downloaded that. Let's go ahead and drop that one in. So I'm going to go to File and then Place. And let me go back and grab that. Hold on a second. Control minus. All right, so this road with those rocks is what I'm after. The shadows on these rocks need to go the opposite way, so let's go ahead and flip this around. Something like that. And I'm trying to get just a little bit of that path to show up. Does that kind of make sense for what I'm doing here? Okay, there's a lot of this that I don't need, so let's go ahead and commit to it for a second, and then we're going to work on this layer so we can turn everything off. Let's go ahead, turn everything off except for this. And I'm going to go and change this to be a multiply, right, so that it's shining through. It also, because it's color, I need to adjust it so that it's not color anymore. So let me go to my image or my layer, new adjustment layer, channel mixer. Okay. Turn that to monochrome. Right? And I want just this part of the path really to be the important part. So let's go ahead, and I'm going to use just the eraser tool here, if I can find it. There it is. We'll make the brush a little bit bigger, and then we need to, oops, be on this. I'm going to right-click to rasterize the layer, and then we'll get rid of some of this. Oh, I want it to be a nice soft brush, something like this. Right, can't have that hard edge. That definitely has to go away. Something like this. Right, and then let's turn back on the background here, and let me go ahead, turn this on. Hold on a second. Because I made this a little bit larger, I actually have to adjust the mask on this layer here. Something like that. Okay, so you see how I'm working to blend these two together, and obviously it's much stronger right now because this one has an opacity that doesn't match this one. And so if we look at this, I've got an opacity of 50%. Let's take this one and change the opacity to 50%, right, which should drop that down. Oops, wrong layer. This should be 100. And the one I wanted to drop was this one. To 50. Right, so that gets a little bit lighter. I need to erase out part of this layer. So let's take this, Control-Alt-G, so that it applies. These two need to come down to be next to these two. And let me erase a little bit out. this. Yes, come on. Sorry. And let's see here. Come on now. It's doing a terrible job of this right now. All right, I should be able to mask this for whatever reason. That's fine. Opacity, it's fine. You have to love it when you're trying to do something and it doesn't work, right? There we go. All right, so let me turn these guys back on here. All right. Now I'm doing this with my layer mask so that if I go too far or I don't like something, I can undo it. Now again, the intent here is to create that little bit of an entrance feel, right? Looks like that's probably too far, so let me switch to this, right? And we'll get rid of this part. That was too far. And I'm rushing a little bit. I should take a little bit more time with this. All right, something like that, right? Where I'm trying to mix those in. I may need to do a little bit of clone stamping. I may need to darken up using a dodge and burn the back sides of these shadows in order to help those integrate a little bit better. Oops, on there. So it'll take a little bit of practice and a little bit of work here. Wrong way. Right, so I'm going to have to work through this, keep flipping it, change my brush to be soft, to blend those two together a little bit better. Yeah, that's a little bit better. All right, so we'll have to play around with it a little bit more, but you get the idea of how I'm combining those two together. Let me make that black and white, and it starts to come together. So if we press Control-0, I'm trying to cut through where this path is to add in this little bit of gravel. And maybe this wasn't the right image. Maybe I should spend a little bit more time and find one that's a little bit more of a dirt road instead of a gravel road. But you get the idea. Okay? So I can integrate that way. I can also go ahead and add flooring in or something if I wanted to do that, which we've done before. So if I went to File and then Place, and again, I'm throwing you all kinds of ideas, not because you need to do them all, but because different ideas can help different people. So if I went, and let's load up something. And why is it not there? Let's see here. Why can't I find what I'm looking for? Right? Yeah, I'm not finding what I'm looking for. So I don't want to hold you guys up. I want to get you actually started. But if I were doing some kind of a wood siding or wood flooring, I would find a piece online and drop that piece in. The other thing that can be helpful on something like this is instead of having just the lines showing here, to actually fill in the walls that you've cut through. And so let's do that to add to it. I'll use either the rectangular selection, or a lot of times just the magic wand will help. And I'm going to go through and just select each of these regions. I'm holding down Shift to select each one as I go through. So all right, I got all that. Let me make sure I've got this building. It's good. I need this and this and that and that. Okay, so I have all of those. Let me press Control-0, and then I can fill those in, and I could fill them in with a color, or I could fill them in with black. For right now, I'll do black. And let me go to my paintbrush, and we'll just fill these in. It just adds a little bit of thickness to these walls. Right, something like that. So now that has a little bit more plan view to it because I've cut through it that way. And then let's turn everything else back on. So we've got the shadows falling through. Need a little bit more shadow for each of these rocks. That will help integrate the two, which I can work on in a bit. But we're looking pretty good now that we have this. I still think for your view, these are light enough. For my view, the roof lines are too heavy. But that's just a personal taste sort of thing. And so from here, I'll just turn you loose, let you work on it. Remember, I'm trying to give you as much time in class to work on these as you can. Each one that you work on is for assignment 106. Remember, you only have to pick 3 of the 4. So we're going to do a plan, an elevation, a section, and a perspective. Right? You just have to pick 3 of those. Yeah. No, it's up to you. Whatever looks right to you. And you don't have to have, for your assignment, if you did like the plan view in black and white and the perspective view in color, that's okay. They don't all have to match. So I'm not going to grade anybody down because one's in black and white and one's in color. What I want you to do is, as you're working through it, edit and decide what looks right to you. Right? And so some of the techniques that we've used before still apply to this one. You know, I could dodge and burn the shadows, for example, and I didn't do that. So there's a variety of strategies that you can use as you go through with this to get a better or worse result. Okay? And you use whatever you think is right. I'm just trying to show you a bunch of strategies. Are there any other questions? No? Okay.